Hi, and welcome back to our nighttime reading of The Magic Treehouse, Dinosaurs Before Dawn, written by Mary Pope Osborne. And so last night we read chapters 4, 5, and 6. There's only 4 chapters left. And so we're going to try to get through those tonight and see what happens to Annie and Jack. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce you. I have 2 new friends with us. Y'all met Sadie Kate last night. And then, of course, I've got my T-Rex that's here listening to our dinosaur book, which we met him last night in our book. And I've got the Stegosaurus. And we've got the Bronchiosaurus. We've got a new one that we met last night, too. This was the Triceratops. Remember we were talking about how it had 3 horns, the 2 on its head, and then 1 on its nose. So this is our Triceratops. It's going to listen to our story. And then Sadie Kate brought along a little friend. And tell us who she is, Sadie.
Her name is Bon Bon, and she likes ice cream, and she likes to read, and she's very smart.
Okay, so Bon Bon and Sadie Kate and our dinosaurs are joining us for our bedtime story. So let's get started so we can see if we can get done with it. All right, chapter 7 is called Ready, Set, Go. "Run, Annie, run!" cried Jack. "To the treehouse!" They dashed down the hill together, through the tall grass, through the ferns, past the pteranodon, and right up to the right to the rope ladder. They scrambled up. Seconds later, they tumbled into the treehouse. Annie leaped to the window. "He's going away," she said, panting. And Jack pushed his glasses into place. He looked through the window with her. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was wandering off, but then the monster stopped and turned around. "Duck," said Jack, and the 2 of them hunched down. After a long moment, they raised their heads and peeked out again. "Coast clear," said Jack. "Yay," whispered Annie. "We've got to get out of here," said Jack. "You made a wish before," said Annie. "I wish we could go back to Frog Creek," said Jack. But nothing happened. Wait, you were looking at a picture in the dinosaur book, remember?" The dinosaur book," Jack groaned. "Oh, no. I left the book and my pack on the hill. We've got to go back." "Oh, just forget it," said Annie. "I can't," said Jack. "The book doesn't belong to us. Plus my notebook's in my pack with all my notes." "Hurry," said Annie. Jack hurried down the rope ladder. He leaped to the ground, raced past the pteranodon, through the ferns, through the tall grass, and up the hill. He looked down. There was his pack, lying on the ground, and on top of it was the dinosaur book. But now the valley below was filled with Anatosauruses, all standing guard around their nests. Where had they been? Did fear of the Tyrannosaurus Rex send them home? Jack took a deep breath. Ready, set, go. He charged down the hill, leaped to his backpack, scooped it up, grabbed the dinosaur book. A terrible tuba sound, and another, and another. All the Anatosauruses were bellowing at him. Jack took off. He raced up to the hilltop and started down the hill. But then he stopped. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was back, and he was standing between Jack and the treehouse. There he is trying to get back to the treehouse, and there's that big T-Rex. Chapter 8, A Giant Shadow. Jack jumped behind the magnolia tree. His heart was beating so fast he could hardly think. He peeked out at the giant monster. The horrible-looking creature was opening and closing his huge jaws. His teeth were as big as steak knives. "Don't panic. Think." Jack peered down at the valley. Good. The duck-billed dinosaurs were sticking close to their nest. Jack looked back at the Tyrannosaurus. Good. The monster still didn't seem to know where he was. Don't panic. Think. Maybe there's some more information in the book. Jack opened the dinosaur book and he found the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he read, "Tyrannosaurus Rex was the largest meat-eating land animal of all time. If it were alive today, it would eat a human in 1 bite." Great. The book was no help at all. Okay, he couldn't hide on the other side of the hill. The Anatosaurus might stampede. Okay, he couldn't run to the treehouse, or the Tyrannosaurus Rex might run faster. Okay, maybe he should just wait. Wait for the monster to leave. Jack peeked around the tree. The Tyrannosaurus had wandered closer to the hill. Something caught Jack's eye. Annie was coming down the rope ladder. Was she nuts? What was she doing? Here he is. He's getting awfully close to Jack's tree. Jack watched Annie hop off the ladder. She went straight to the pteranodon. She was talking to him. She was flipping her arms. She pointed at Jack, at the sky, at the treehouse. She was nuts. Go back up the tree, Jack whispered. Go. Suddenly, Jack heard a roar, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex was looking in his direction. Jack hit the ground. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was coming towards the hill. Jack felt the ground shaking. Should he run? Crawl back into Dinosaur Valley? Climb that magnolia tree? Just then, a giant shadow covered Jack, and he looked up. The pteranodon was gliding overhead. The giant creature sailed down towards the top of the hill. He was coming straight for Jack. Chapter 9. The Amazing Ride. The pteranodon coasted down to the ground. He stared at Jack with his bright, alert eyes. What was Jack supposed to do? Climb on? But I'm too heavy, thought Jack. Don't think. Just do it. Jack looked at the Tyrannosaurus. He was starting up the hill. His giant teeth were flashing in the sunlight. Okay, don't think. Just do it. Jack put his book in his pack. Then he eased down onto the pteranodon's back, and he held on tightly. The creature moved forward. He spread out his wings and lifted off the ground. They teetered this way and that, and Jack nearly fell off. The pteranodon steadied himself and then rose into the sky. Jack looked down. The Tyrannosaurus was chomping the air and staring up at him. The pteranodon glided away. He sailed over the hilltop. He circled over the valley, over the nest filled with babies, over all the giant duck-billed dinosaurs. Then the pteranodon soared out over the plain, over the triceratops who was grazing in the high grass. It was amazing. It was a miracle. Jack felt like a bird, as light as a feather. The wind was rushing through his hair, and the air smelled sweet and fresh. He whooped. He laughed. Jack couldn't believe it. He was riding on the back of an ancient flying reptile. There he is, flying away from T-Rex. The pteranodon sailed over the stream, over the ferns and bushes. Then he carried Jack down to the base of the oak tree. When they came to a stop, Jack slid off the creature's back and landed on the ground. Then the pteranodon took off again and glided into the sky. Bye, Henry, whispered Jack. Are you okay? Annie shouted from the treehouse. Jack pushed his glasses into place, and he kept staring up at the pteranodon. Jack, are you okay? Annie called. Jack looked up at Annie and smiled. Thanks for saving my life, he said. That was really fun. Climb up, said Annie. Jack tried to stand. His legs were wobbly, and he felt a bit dizzy. Hurry, shouted Annie. He's coming. Jack looked around, and the Tyrannosaurus was headed straight towards him. Jack bolted to the ladder. He grabbed the sides and started up. Hurry, hurry, screamed Annie. Jack scrambled into the treehouse. He's coming towards that tree, Annie cried. Suddenly, something slammed against their oak tree. The treehouse shook like a leaf. Jack and Annie tumbled into the books. Make a wish, cried Annie. We need the book, the one with the picture of Frog Creek, said Jack. Where is it? He pushed some books aside. He had to find that book about Pennsylvania. There it is. He grabbed it and tore through it, looking for the photograph of the Frog Creek woods. He found it. Jack pointed to the picture. I wish we could go home, he shouted, and the wind began to moan, softly at first. Hurry, Jack yelled. The wind picked up. It was whistling now. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Jack closed his eyes. He held on tightly to Annie, and then everything was still. Absolutely still. Last chapter, chapter 10, Home Before Dark. A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes. He was still pointing at the picture of the Frog Creek woods. He peeked out of the treehouse window. Outside, he saw the exact same view. We're home, whispered Annie. The woods were lit with golden late afternoon light. The sun was about to set. No time had passed since they had left. Jack! Annie! A voice called from the distance. That's Mom, said Annie, pointing. Jack saw their mother far away. She was standing in front of their house. She looked very tiny. Annie! Jack! She called. Annie stuck her head out the window and shouted, Coming! Jack still felt dazed. He just stared at Annie. There they are in the treehouse back home. What happened to us, he said. We took a trip in a magic treehouse, said Annie simply. But it's the same time as when we left, said Jack. Annie shrugged. And how did it take us so far away, said Jack. And so long ago. You just looked at a book and said you wished we could go there, said Annie, and the magic treehouse took us there. But how, said Jack, and who built this magic treehouse? Who put all these books here? A magic person, I guess, said Annie. A magic person? Oh, look, said Jack. I must have forgotten about this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gold medallion. Someone lost it back there in Dinosaur Land. Look, there's a letter M on it. Annie's eyes got round. Do you think M stands for magic person, she said. I don't know, said Jack. I just know that someone went to that place before us. Jack! Annie! Came the distant cry again. Annie poked her head out of the window. Coming, she shouted. Jack put the gold medallion back in his pocket. He pulled the dinosaur book out of his pack and put it back with all the other books. Then he and Annie took one last look around the treehouse. Goodbye, house, whispered Annie. Jack slung his backpack over his shoulder and pointed at the ladder. Annie started down and Jack followed. Seconds later, they hopped onto the ground and started walking out of the woods. No one is going to believe our story, said Jack. So let's not tell anyone, said Annie. Dad won't believe it, said Jack. He'll say it was a dream, said Annie. And Mom won't believe it, said Jack. She'll say it was just pretend. My teacher won't believe it, said Jack. She'll say you're nuts, said Annie. We better not tell anyone, said Jack. I already said that, said Annie. Jack sighed. I think I'm starting to not believe it myself, he said. They left the woods and started up the road towards their house. As they walked past all the houses on their streets, the trip to Dinosaur Time did seem more and more like a dream. Only this world and this time seemed real. Jack peeked into his pocket. He clasped the gold medallion. He felt the engraving of the letter M, and it made Jack's fingers tingle. Jack laughed. Suddenly, he felt very happy. He couldn't explain what had happened today, but he knew for sure that their trip in the Magic Treehouse had been real. Absolutely real. Tomorrow, Jack said softly, we'll go back to the woods. Of course, said Annie. And we'll climb up to the treehouse, said Jack. Of course, said Annie. And we'll see what happens next, said Jack. Of course, said Annie. Race you! And they took off together, running for home. The end. I hope you enjoyed our Magic Treehouse, Book 1, Dawn Before the Dinosaurs. Sorry, Dinosaurs Before Dark. And I wanted to show y'all book number 2 that will start tomorrow night. It is the Magic Treehouse number 2, The Night at Dawn. So, thinking it might be about medieval times with a knight. And since it's dark outside, maybe it's talking about in the middle of the night too. So tune in tomorrow to see what happens in the first 3 chapters of Magic Treehouse, The Night at Dawn. Good night.
Night.